Story filled with mystery, emotion, and revelation. 1. In the quiet village of Ellenthor, nestled among mist-covered hills and whispering trees, lived a young woman named Mira. She was known to everyone as the silent soul of the valley, a painter who never spoke a word, but whose eyes carried deep emotions that even words could not convey. 2. Mira lived with her grandmother, Amama, in a small ancestral house at the edge of the forest. Her parents had died when she was just 5, in an accident that left her mute. The silence wasn't just physical, it was emotional, a curtain she had drawn to protect herself from the world. 3. Every morning, Mira would climb up the nearby hill with her painting materials. There, she would sit and paint the scenes that played inside her heart. Forgotten memories, dreams, and sometimes things that were yet to happen. Her paintings were eerily prophetic. 4. One day, a young man named Rohan arrived in Ellenthor. He was a filmmaker from the city, searching for a unique story for his next movie. He was struck by the untouched beauty of the village and decided to stay for a few weeks. 5. While walking through the village, Rohan saw one of Mira's paintings hanging in a tea shop. It depicted a red scarf floating in a river with a shadowy figure watching from behind the trees. Something about the image haunted him deeply. 6. Curious, he inquired about the painter and was led to Mira's house. When he first met her, he was taken aback by her silence and expressive eyes. She offered him tea with a shy smile but did not speak a word. Rohan, being a storyteller, found a strange beauty in her silence. 7. Over the next few days, Rohan would visit her often. He would talk to her about his films, his dreams, and his failures. She would listen quietly and respond only with her smile, gestures, and occasionally through her paintings. 8. One evening, he showed her a short film he had made, a story about a mute girl who paints the future. Mira's eyes widened, and she took out a canvas that had been hidden in her room. It showed a man sitting next to a woman under a tree full of yellow blossoms. 9. The man in the painting looked just like Rohan. The woman was Mira herself. Rohan was stunned. The tree she had painted stood just outside the village temple. He couldn't believe it. She had painted this before ever meeting him. 10. When Rohan asked her about it, she simply looked away and pointed to the sky. That night, Rohan couldn't sleep. Who was this mysterious woman? And how did she know him before they even met? 11. As days passed, their bond grew deeper. Though words never passed between them, a silent understanding bloomed. The villagers began whispering that something was about to happen because Mira had started painting in red, a color she never used. 12. One night, Amama told Rohan a story. Years ago, when Mira was 5, she had witnessed her parents being pushed off a cliff. The police had ruled it an accident, but Mira had seen a man in a red scarf watching from behind a tree. Since that day, she had never spoken. 13. Rohan was shaken. Could the painting of the red scarf he saw at the tea shop be connected to Mira's past? He begged Mira to help him find the truth, and for the first time, she nodded. 14. Mira led Rohan into the forest, to the spot where the accident had happened. The cliff was still there, the rocks sharp, the silence thick. She stood at the edge and pointed to the far side of the river. 15. They crossed the river and reached an abandoned estate. Rohan sensed something eerie. Inside the estate, they found old photographs, ledgers, and a red scarf hanging behind a broken door. Mira's hands trembled. 16. Suddenly, a man appeared, a reclusive old caretaker who had once worked for Mira's father. His face turned pale seeing her. Rohan demanded answers. The man confessed. Mira's parents had discovered illegal deforestation by a local politician. They were silenced. 17. The caretaker handed Mira an old diary that belonged to her mother. Inside were entries, sketches, and the final page, which read, "If anything happens to us, protect Mira. She is the future." 18. Mira sat still for a long time. Then, for the first time in years, she opened her mouth and whispered, "Amma." Her voice cracked, but it was real. Rowan's eyes welled up. 19. Back in the village, Rowan reported the truth. A reinvestigation began. The politician, now old and retired, was arrested. Justice, though late, had arrived. 20. Mira began speaking again slowly. Her voice was soft, musical, like a forgotten tune remembered again. Rowan decided to stay back and make a film based on her life, The Silent Veil. 21. As the filming began, Mira painted every scene before it was shot. Her paintings guided the story. The tree with yellow blossoms, the red scarf, the silent screams, everything unfolded as if the past had waited to be told. 22. The villagers watched in awe as their silent girl became the voice of truth. Tourists, reporters, and artists began to arrive, not to invade, but to understand. 23. Mira, though still shy, began teaching painting to local children. She painted joy, pain, hope, and taught the children to see stories in colors. 24. Rohan's film premiered in Kochi and then in Mumbai. It won awards and hearts, but more than that, it sparked conversations about healing, silence, and justice. 25. Mira did not attend the premiere. She stayed back in Ellenthor under the same yellow blossom tree, painting a new story, one without scars. Night. Every time he closed his eyes, the image of the strange figure would return, standing still, almost as if waiting. He tried to convince himself it was just a trick of the mind, perhaps a shadow caused by the flickering torchlight. But deep down, he knew better. The chill on his skin, the tightening in his chest, and the way time seemed to pause, all of it felt far too real to dismiss. He wrapped himself tightly in his blanket, ears alert to every creak of the wooden house, and waited for morning. The next morning, Arav visited the oldest man in the village, Velichapan, known for his knowledge of everything mysterious about Silent Hollow. The old man listened carefully, not interrupting even once. When Arav finished, Velichapan slowly nodded. "You've seen it," he whispered, his voice trembling. "The silent visitor." Arav was stunned. The name sent shivers down his spine. Velichapan explained that the visitor appeared once in a generation, always to someone who wandered too far, too deep into the forest. According to Velichapan, the silent visitor wasn't a ghost or a monster. It was something ancient, something that had existed in the hollow long before humans came. Some said it was the spirit of the forest itself. Others believed it was a guardian, ensuring that no one disturbed what lay buried beneath the trees. "It doesn't harm," Velichapan said, "but it watches. It remembers. And if it chooses to show itself to you, it means something has begun." What had begun, though, even he couldn't say. That evening, Arav returned home with more questions than answers. He tried to act normal around his parents, laughing at their jokes and pretending to study, but his mind was elsewhere. He kept staring at the woods from his window, half hoping and half dreading to see the figure again. The night passed uneventfully, but his dreams were strange, filled with whispering winds, glowing eyes, and a low hum that felt like it came from the earth itself. Determined to know the truth, Arav began documenting everything. He kept a journal, recording the exact times he heard the noises, saw strange patterns in the leaves, or felt unusual coldness in the air. He also began drawing, not because he was good at it, but because the images came to him when he closed his eyes. The figure, the clearing, the trees bending inward, it all started forming a pattern. One drawing, however, disturbed him more than others. A dark pit in the forest, with something glowing at the bottom. That drawing of the glowing pit haunted Arav. He didn't recall seeing such a pit in the forest, but the image refused to leave his mind. It was as if his hand had drawn something his eyes hadn't yet seen. Intrigued and nervous, he took his sketch to Velichapan. The old man's face paled as he stared at it. This is the core," he whispered. "The heart of the hollow. No one has ever seen it, only in dreams. They say it is where the hollow breathes." Arav asked him if it was dangerous. Velichapan simply replied, "It depends on why it's calling you." Over the next few days, the atmosphere around Silent Hollow began to shift subtly. Birds that usually chirped merrily at dawn were silent. The air felt thicker, more humid. And most strangely, some villagers began to feel uneasy, especially the animals. Dogs barked at nothing. Cows refused to enter their sheds at night. Arav's own cat stared long and hard at the window, tail puffed, before hissing and hiding under the bed. The village seemed to sense something looming, something just out of sight. Unable to ignore the pull any longer, Arav decided he would return to the forest. Not during the day this time, but at night. The same hour when he first saw the figure. He didn't tell his parents. He packed a small backpack with a flashlight, notebook, pencil, and a talisman Velichapan had given him. A piece of polished black stone tied with red thread. "It won't protect you from harm," the old man had warned, but it will keep your spirit grounded. Arav wasn't sure what that meant, but he tied it tightly around his wrist. He stepped into the forest just as the village clock struck midnight. The silence was profound, not even the chirp of a cricket or the rustle of a leaf. It felt as if the entire forest was holding its breath. Arav walked slowly, flashlight low, careful not to disturb the earth beneath him. After nearly 20 minutes, he reached the clearing. It looked just like before, calm, moonlit, and empty. But tonight, he noticed something new, a trail of glowing moss leading deeper into the woods. The moss glowed a soft green, almost like starlight. It pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. Mesmerized, Arav followed the trail. It twisted through thick trees, ducked under low branches, and finally led him to something he never expected, the very pit he had drawn. It was real, a perfect circle, about 10 feet across, carved into the earth like a forgotten well. From its depths rose a faint light, the same light that had guided him there. Arav stood at the edge, heart racing. He knew this was the core. Arav crouched by the edge of the glowing pit, peering into its depths. It seemed bottomless, yet it didn't feel threatening. Rather, it felt aware, as though it recognized him. The light wasn't harsh. It shimmered softly, shifting in shades of green, blue, and silver. A low hum vibrated through the soil, like the earth whispering in a language only the forest could understand. Arav reached into his backpack, pulled out his sketch pad, and began drawing again. This time, not what he saw, but what he felt. His pencil moved on its own. He didn't guide it, not really. Shapes emerged, ancient symbols, spirals, and shadowy forms of beings with eyes like... One figure kept repeating, tall, cloaked, faceless, yet familiar. Arav's hands trembled. That was the visitor he'd seen before. Just then, a gentle breeze rose from the pit and scattered his pages. Some flew into the darkness. Some hovered briefly in midair, then drifted gently back down around him, as if the forest itself had read them and returned what it approved. A single whisper escaped the hollow. Remember. The sound was not loud, but it echoed through Arav's bones. He spun around. No one there. The trees were still. The light dimmed slightly, and a shadow moved across the far side of the pit. It was the visitor. But this time, it didn't vanish. It stood silently, watching. Arav didn't run. He couldn't. He was no longer afraid. Somewhere deep inside, he knew this figure wasn't here to harm him. It was part of him. He stepped closer. The figure raised its hand, not as a threat, but as a welcome. And as it did, Arav felt memories that were not his own flood into his mind. Visions of ancient forests, glowing paths, and children from long ago who also found the core. They had become keepers, guardians of the balance between the world of men and the hidden life of the hollow. Arav understood now. He hadn't stumbled here by chance. He had been chosen. The visitor extended a hand, and Arav, after a pause, took it. The moment their fingers touched, the forest pulsed with light. Not bright, not blinding, just alive. Birds stirred in their nests. The breeze carried the scent of old earth and blooming flowers. From the pit, tendrils of light rose and wrapped around them both. The vision was clear now. Arav would be the next guardian, the boy who listens, the one who walks between. When Arav woke up, he was lying beside the pit, but the visitor was gone. The glow had faded, replaced by the soft gray of early dawn. His notebook lay beside him, pages full of drawings he didn't remember making. He stood up, a little dizzy but clear-headed. He followed the mossy trail back, which had now faded entirely. The forest looked normal, alive and familiar. But Arav knew nothing would be the same again. Back in the village, no one had noticed his absence. The clocks read the same time as when he had left, as if time in the hollow had moved differently. His mother called him for breakfast, smiling as usual. Yet Arav saw things differently now. The way her voice echoed, how her shadow fell, how the birds outside his window paused to look at him. Everything held meaning. Everything was connected. He began sketching more and more, this time with purpose. His drawings told stories of the forest's moods, of dangers that stirred below, of animals who spoke in silence. Bella Chapin saw one of his sketches and whispered, "The gift has fully awakened." Arav nodded. "I need to protect it now." The old man smiled. "And it will protect you." Over the next few months, Arav learned to read signs others couldn't see. He could sense when the forest was happy or when something dark moved within it. He no longer needed to wait for dreams. The hollow would speak to him through rustling leaves, falling petals, and glimmers of light on the water. His drawings now served as warnings and blessings for the villagers, even if they didn't fully understand them. But the visitor still came. Not often, but just enough. Always silent, always watching. Arav never spoke to it again. He didn't need to. Their connection was complete. He had become the bridge between Silent Hollow and the human world. And though he was just a boy, the weight of the forest now rested lightly but firmly on his shoulders. One evening, as he sat sketching by the pond, a younger child came to him, curious, shy, and wide-eyed. "Why do you draw the same tree over and over?" the child asked. Arav smiled. "Because it changes every time." The child frowned. "But it looks the same to me." Arav patted the ground beside him. "Sit long enough and it'll speak to you too." That was how it began, passing the legacy gently forward. People began calling Arav the listener, not mockingly, but with respect. They noticed how he could calm frightened animals, predict the rains, or help crops grow better. They didn't ask too many questions, and Arav never gave explanations. He simply listened to people, to wind, to earth, and the hollow, in turn, listened to him. On some nights when the moon was full, lights were seen in the forest, faint, floating, and strange. The elders said it was the spirits of the forest celebrating. Children believed Arav was playing with forest fairies. Only Vela Chapin knew the truth. Before he passed, he gave Arav a final gift, an old journal with blank pages. "Time to write your own story," he whispered. Years passed. Arav grew but never left the village. His life was rooted in Silent Hollow, like the trees he once feared. He never married, never sought fame, but his drawings, scattered across homes and temples, were known far and wide. People said they carried blessings. No one knew how or why, but everyone believed. And so the legend of the silent visitor lived on. Through the drawings, through whispered stories, and through the boy who listened. Some say he still walks the forest at night, hand in hand with a figure no one else can see. Others say he became part of the forest itself, a spirit of silence and light. But those who knew him best say only one thing. Arav didn't find the hollow, it found him.